There's a quiet kind of power that lives in the heart of someone who's seen 70 winters. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It shows up in the way their eyes soften when someone else speaks because they've learned how much listening matters. It lives in their silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know when words are truly needed. This is the age of grace. And if you're lucky enough to find yourself in this season of life, or if you hope to get there someday, let me tell you something you might not hear enough. Life after 7-0 can be the most beautiful chapter of all. This is the story of those who found magic, not in youth, but in the richness of age. Eleanor sat by the window every morning at 7:15 a.m., her tea warm in her hands, her feet wrapped in wool socks, and her mind wrapped in memories. She was 82, and everyone thought her life had slowed down. But Eleanor knew better. In that chair by the window, she was living more fully than she ever had at 42 or 52. Not because life was easier now, but because it was finally hers. No children to raise, no office to rush to, no one else's dreams to manage, just hers. I thought aging would feel like disappearing, she once told her granddaughter. But what I didn't know is it's the first time in my life I felt completely visible to myself. Her words stayed with me because they weren't just poetic. They were true. We spend so much of our lives trying to be enough for parents, for spouses, for careers, for society. But in our later years, we finally begin to ask, enough for who? And that's where the beauty begins. George was 78 when he started painting. He'd worked in construction all his life. Calloused hands, strong back, a man of few words. He built homes, but he never built something for his soul. Then one morning, shortly after his wife passed, he picked up a paintbrush. He didn't know why. He just knew his hands needed to make something. And when he painted, he didn't try to be perfect. He painted the way he grieved. Messy, brave, honest. He painted their first house, then her favorite garden, then the chair she used to read in. By 80, George had an entire gallery in his garage. Neighbors came by just to stand among his memories. He'd smile shyly and say, "Never thought these old hands would make art." But they did, because purpose doesn't retire. It just changes its shape. Margaret found the letter when she was cleaning out the attic. It was old, tucked inside the back of a photo album. The handwriting was familiar. It was Charles's. They had dated in their 20s, but life had pulled them apart. Careers, family expectations, and oceans between them. She married someone else. So did he. She had a good life. But when she read the letter, written in 1963, never sent, something inside her stirred. He had written, "If you ever wonder whether I loved you, I did. I do. I always will." Margaret was 76, and for the first time in decades, she allowed herself to cry for what might have been. But that wasn't the end, because 3 months later, out of curiosity or fate, she searched for him. He was alive, widowed, living 2 states away. They met again in a little diner halfway between, both with gray hair, soft skin, and hearts that had never forgotten. They didn't speak like strangers. They spoke like a pause had finally ended. They married at 77. Their first dance? Nat King Cole. Because some stories take decades to return, but love? It's never too late. Teresa lost her husband at 69, and for 2 years, she barely left the house. Grief had no clock. The world moved on, but she couldn't. Until one morning, she noticed the garden they had planted together was dying. And for some reason, she couldn't bear that. She dragged herself outside just to pull weeds. Then she pruned a little. Then she planted something new. Week by week, as she watered the garden, something watered her. Hope. It didn't come all at once, but it came. Neighbors started stopping by to admire the roses. She started baking again, talking again, living again. And one evening, while sipping tea under a canopy of blooms, she whispered aloud, "Thank you for leaving me the garden. I know now. It was your way of helping me grow again." At the edge of town, there's a little coffee shop called Night Owl Cafe. It opens at 9 p, a strange hour for most, but not for the group that meets there. They're called the Late Bloomers. Every Friday night, a dozen people over 70 gather with coffee, laughter, stories, and songs. Some are widowed, some divorced, some never married, but they all share something in common. They aren't done living. There's Tony, who started stand-up comedy at 74. Grace, who's learning the cello at 81. Linda, who finally came out as gay at 76, and now brings her partner every week. They laugh like teenagers. They cry like warriors. They live like people who know time is precious and joy is worth chasing. Old age isn't an ending, Tony says. It's just Act 3, and sometimes the best scenes come last. Not all healing is physical. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones we've carried for decades. That's why James, at 85, wrote a letter to his brother, the one he hadn't spoken to in 41 years. They had fought over something neither could now recall clearly. Pride had kept them apart, but James's heart had grown tired of the wait. So he wrote, "I don't remember what we were fighting about, but I do remember the way you laughed when we were kids. I remember how we built that treehouse. I remember how you stood up for me in school. I miss you. I love you. If you want to talk, I'm here." 3 weeks later, a knock on the door. There stood his brother. No words, just an embrace that said, "I missed you too," because the beauty of growing older is learning how much peace matters more than pride. Clara had always wanted to dance, but her mother told her it was impractical. Her husband said it was childish, so she didn't until 79, when she signed up for ballroom classes. She didn't tell anyone at first. She just went. Every Tuesday night, she bought new shoes, practiced in front of the mirror, laughed when she got the steps wrong, and when recital day came, her hands were shaking. But she danced, not like a professional, but like a woman finally coming home to herself. The crowd stood, not for the precision, but for the courage, because there is something stunning about someone who chooses to begin when the world says they're supposed to be ending. Here's the truth no one tells you when you're young. Aging doesn't take away who you are. It reveals you. It strips away the noise, the expectations, the masks, and underneath is someone more real, more beautiful, more whole than ever before. It's the woman who finally says no without guilt. The man who finally cries without shame. The grandparent who holds their grandchild and knows this is what matters. It's the moment you look in the mirror and instead of seeing wrinkles, you see evidence of laughter, of love, of surviving. This is not the end. It's the chapter where everything comes together, where your stories matter more, where your presence speaks louder, where you become a living, breathing reminder that life doesn't slow down, it deepens. So here we are, at the edge of what some call old age. But I think that name is wrong, because there's nothing old about a soul still learning, still loving, still opening to the world. This is the age of grace, the age of wisdom, not weariness, of presence, not passing, of laughter that bubbles up from a place that knows how fleeting time is. So if you're 70 or 80 or 90, this is your invitation to write a new page, to forgive yourself, to follow a dream, to dance in your kitchen, to fall in love again with someone else or with your own life. You are not invisible. You are not irrelevant. You are a lighthouse in a world that desperately needs your glow. And to those who are younger, listen to these stories, soak in their strength, because one day, if you're lucky, you'll be here too. And when you are, you'll know the most beautiful chapter wasn't the beginning. It was the one where you finally realized how magnificent you've always been. Let me know if you'd like a version formatted for subtitles, a second part, or another title in this emotional storytelling style.